All right. Welcome everyone to our live with Emily Chang. Emily, welcome. I'm going to do a quick introduction for you. How to lead with authentic purpose. So, Emily is one of our virtual speakers for the upcoming WNorth conference. So, if you're not familiar, the WNorth conference is an annual conference that brings together women from across all industries who have, and they want women who are on a trajectory towards senior executive leadership. And this is our 7th year, our 6th in person, and it is our first in person after a 3-year hiatus. So if you're interested in learning more, go to WNorthConnect.com, and we've still got some tickets left, and then of course virtual tickets as well. So today, though, we are talking and we are celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Emily's book, The Spare Room. I've got it right here, and she's got it. How do I do this? There we go. And so today, in celebration of that, we are talking about how to lead with authentic purpose. Now, Emily is the CEO of McCann World Group in China. And prior to accepting this role, she took a year off to write this book, The Spare Room. And it was the topic of her first TED Talk. Before that, she served as a CMO of Starbucks China, where she was responsible for marketing, sales, loyalty, customer engagement, and the digital ecosystem, including e-commerce, loyalty, payments, and partnerships. That's a big portfolio, Emily. She led the teams that tripled digital tender across stores and helped open the first Starbucks roastery outside of Seattle. Love that place. Such an amazing spot. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Emily to the stage.
Heather, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the idea. Frankly, the birthday or the 1-year anniversary of this book kind of snuck up on me. So when I saw your note proposing the idea, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't think of anything better, because you were one of the first people I spoke to about the book. And to relive it 1 year later feels like it happened in the blink of an eye, though, doesn't it?
Definitely. And you experienced a book launch in the middle of the pandemic. So, I mean, before I even get into my scripted questions, I would love to just learn a little bit about that, because when we were talking last time, you were, planning it out and how to get this book out into the universe. So, tell us about that.
You know, it has been such an extraordinary journey because I don't know how to write a book. I didn't even know if I was a good writer. I didn't know how to find an agent or a publisher. Everything just sort of unfolded. And I would give credit to the fact that, I and my family wanted to write this book as an act of generosity. This isn't about me. We make zero money. In fact, we invest in this book because all the retail sales go to SOS Children's Villages. We wanted it to be a way to contribute to people who are interested in trying to figure out what their own social legacy is, or how to just live with more intentionality. And I think because of that's sort of where this generosity begets generosity. And it all just happened within a year's time. Now, you're right. I ended up in the middle of COVID and then moving back to China for a job, all in the midst of trying to launch a book in the US. So perhaps, again, graciousness on the part of my publisher, because they were like, oh, so you're not even going to be in the US. But then COVID hit and we couldn't do live author events anyway. So I guess it kind of all worked out.
There are, as I can attest to, there are a lot of advantages to hosting events virtually and being able to get the word out to so many more people. So I hear you on that. It's not necessarily a disadvantage. It's just different, and it has its own set of challenges. So well done, and congratulations on the first year.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I'd love to dive into the topic a little. So today is about leading with that authentic purpose. So in the book, you talk a little bit about offense, or the meaning. I'd love for you to define the meaning behind offense and offer, as you share in your book, with those who haven't had a chance to read it, or so they can learn more.
Of course. The book started off almost like an anthology, like The Moth or Chicken Soup for the Soul, because we've had 17 kids living in our spare room over the last 22 years. We thought their stories are so worth telling. Then, as the book evolved, it really became something very different. And I love, passion projects have a habit of doing this. I put the book on the back burner because I was invited to do a TEDx talk. And TEDx is great because they really force you to ask yourself, what is your idea worth sharing? What is it you really want to tell people? And as I started to unpack what I wanted to say, I landed on it's not just stories of these kids, which are extraordinary. It's actually this idea that when you lean into what you want to contribute and what you want to aim that contribution at, you live such a deeper, fuller life. And that's an encouragement that I wanted to give people. And then as I started to do this TEDx talk, not only preparing for the talk, but the conversations that have two camps pretty much. It was like the best free focus group ever. Either people said, I generally know what I can bring to the table, but I don't know what to do with it. That would be the offer. Or people said, I know the thing that really pisses me off. I know what bothers me, but I don't know what I can do about it. I'm just one person. And that would be the offense. So it became this very simple construct of offer and offense. So the chapters are one offer, some stories of people who've discovered their offer, including my own. And then it ends with quite a lot of, I think, 40 pages of how to unpack your own offer so that by the end of the chapter, you have written out in a line, here's what I think I offer. And there's, I think, Heather, there's power to words where if you can write down succinctly what you think that is, it's more powerful than being like, well, yeah, I think I'm generally good at these things because it becomes specific. And then on the chapter 2, it's all about offense, which is that thing you want to aim toward. And if you can, again, articulate your offense, then chapter 3 is bringing those two things together in a simple Venn diagram. And that intersection is social legacy.
Awesome. And what I think is so interesting, and one of the reasons why I was so drawn to you in this book is as a CEO of a major company in China, a lot of people would expect you to write a business book, and this is a business book, but it's a different kind of business book. And I just noticed in the LinkedIn comments, someone had commented, wow, 17 kids. So I was like, well, maybe we should revisit that. So to explain a little bit more about what your spare room represented and why this book intersects between personal and professional brand.
Yeah, the first kid I brought home, I had just turned 20 years old, and it was a total fluke. So it was not intentional. I wasn't trying to be a good person. I just drove by somebody who was in dire need of help. And I just did what I could, which was take her to a cheap diner and fed her. And then as she started to walk out, she was so young. I just couldn't let her go back out into this dark and stormy night. It was Rochester, upstate New York. If anyone knows how terrible that weather is, she ended up staying on my couch for a couple of months. And I think that was a blessing in so many ways because I had to give very little. And it was such a good experience. She became like my little sister that it made me so much more open to saying, yeah, why can't I just say yes and help somebody? Now, if you had paused and said, hey, there's this girl who's run away. She's basically prostituting herself on the street. She's just been beaten up. Do you want to share a room with her for 4 months? I think I would have said no. But a lot of times when I think you just take that first step and then you take the next step, you find you're just capable of so much more than you would imagine. So over time, different young people, sometimes babies, sometimes young adults, and a lot of teens, like that first girl, have just ended up on our front porch, whether it was when I was single, when I was dating my now husband, when we were a young couple, even when we had a baby, when we were pregnant. And most recently, just a couple months, 1 month ago, when our daughter's now 13. And it's kind of interesting, we're celebrating the 1 year anniversary of the book. My daughter's 13 as we have our 17th kid in the spare room. And the first kid I had in 98 was 13 years old when she moved in with me.
Wow. Wow. And it's interesting how you walk through that process of, you didn't just say yes right away. Like the opportunity found you,
Yeah.
and you made steps towards this being your social legacy. A lot of people are, at this moment in time, searching for what their social purpose and their legacy might be.
Mhm.
And there are always these signs that you don't always see. And there are things that we often do anyways that we don't fully realize that this could be a part of our bigger purpose.
Yeah.
And then more recently, there's a lot of people that are feeling like they have to attach that social purpose to the job that they're in, which I don't believe. I think there's
Mm.
a lot of opportunity to find, purpose in, of course, in your work, but other, external um, contributions that we can make. So, what advice would you potentially give to people? I'm sure you get asked this quite a lot in terms of trying to find out and hone in on what that legacy could be for them.
That's a great question. So the first thing I wanted to share is why social legacy? I think this idea of purpose is so overarching, and maybe the word is a little overused, that it's a little intimidating. It's like, I don't know what my purpose is. That sounds so grand and final. So as I was writing the book, I was just trying to think, what's a more succinct articulation of what I really, really mean? And legacy is just leaving something better than you found it. It's not something huge that is earth shattering or redefines my identity. It just says, yeah, I want to leave something better than I found it. And social defines the space in which I want to do that. So everybody can define their legacy and their social space that really matters to them. And there's some exercises in the book that kind of help you identify. For some people in the book, you can tell the earth is the thing that really matters to them. They care so deeply about leaving the earth better, or at least not worse than we found it when we came into it. Other people are much more neighborhood driven. And that's equally impactful because we don't know the ripple effect of the good that we do in this world. Even in writing this book, I didn't know it would ever get published. I don't know how many we've sold. I don't know the impact it really has on readers, but I have to have confidence that it was designed with positive intent, and those who've read it will hopefully amplify a message. And ultimately, I would love for this not to be a book, but this movement of social legacy, to your point, which is something that people start asking each other, like, yeah, what's your spare room? What is your social legacy? How do you think about what you want to do and contribute and where you want to do that? So I agree with you, Heather. I was taking a note. I don't think social purpose has to be inextricably tied to your job. So in the book, there are about 15 stories. Some of them are mine, some of them are other people. And you'll see some people absolutely made a career change, like Tara, Kitty, and Shannon. They realized they wanted to use their offer, their skill set, to do something that was more meaningful. Like Tara's chapter is called A Voice for the Voiceless. She has an amazing voice and an incredible talent. She was the first APA singer for Cirque du Soleil, but she said, I want to use my voice to tell stories and share experiences that are more meaningful. But there are others who discovered a social purpose or an ability to leave a legacy in the job they're already in, like Thomas, who discovered the two homeless gentlemen who were en route from car to office every day, or Karen, who was a physical therapy worker and said, I want to go see what I can go do in the Ukraine because I think more orphans can become deemed adoptable with some simple activities. Or there are other people who, like me, I had, I think, 7 or 8 kids in my home before I ever really told anybody at work about it, because I always sort of compartmentalized. To me, this was home, and it was really my friend Will who kind of said, "Why don't you tell people at work? I think it's kind of cool. Like, this doesn't really have to be separated." And that was where I think I entered a new chapter in my own professional career, where I realized, yeah, maybe it's not associated with my work, taking care of kids who need a safe place, but bringing it into the workplace or integrating my professional and my personal life can help me become more effective in both places.
100%. And I love that you shared that initially you were somewhat uncomfortable, or maybe not uncomfortable, but you
Yeah.
didn't know if it was appropriate. And I think if anything, COVID has taught us over the last 2 years is that there's less lines between our personal brand or our personal presence and our professional one. And I think it's important. I was just talking to a friend who did an offsite. With a remote team, it's really important to have that understanding of the other side of that person's life, because it does affect how they do business and how they are, what's their priorities in business and even marketing decisions. Actually, I'd love to plant on that for a second, because you are a marketing executive. So I'd love to get a sense of, this is a wider conversation, but I'm seeing this shift in where businesses are having to essentially market their culture.
Yeah.
In marketing, a job that's posted, it's less about maybe marketing the coffee that we're selling, but it's marketing the culture that we're selling in this time of trying to recruit. So I'd love to get a sense of what you're seeing in that, and that's with the lens of marketing, and your perspective on leading.
I think it's more important than ever before, not only because in Shanghai, we're coming on 1 month of being quarantined again. It's like back to the future. And I think that can be really demoralizing. So it's almost a petri dish in that respect. But I spent 22 years working on what we call the client side in corporate. And the last 10 years of that was all in retail and hospitality. It's all service industry. And we always say that people are the most important thing in our company. It's true. And now that I run creative agencies, it's taken it to a completely different level because we literally are only people. We're people and real estate. And now that we're working 1 month at home, we're actually just people.
That's
So so we do great work when we have the right people. And if we don't have the right people, we don't do great work. It's super binary. And if we have great people, but they're not motivated or they don't love work or feel inspired or valued, they're not going to do great work. So to me, I'm in the simplest distillation of people management that I've ever been in. And I couldn't express how much I love it because you get to focus on pouring into people, finding great people, unleashing them, connecting them, people who maybe don't work every day together, having them talk to each other and just say, hey, there might be something here that you guys can learn from each other. Or, hey, maybe this client you're working on has something this client might benefit from. That's what I get to do all day. And
Yeah.
even last week, we were in week 3 working from home again.
Yeah.
And it's really shut down right now, like to the point where
I
people are.
heard just a couple days ago, but it has been for 3 weeks already.
It depends on where you live in Shanghai. It's a big city of 27 million, but where I live, we were high risk because we had 2 cases. So just to kind of put the scale in perspective, it's not really like there's a massive outbreak. It's the management of, right? So we've been here since the 11th, my family, but others have really just gone into lockdown.
Got it. So, you talk a little bit about motivating your teams
Yeah.
and in a remote environment. And I'd love to get a sense of how you gave us a window, your leadership style in terms of motivating
Mm.
and inspiring these, creatives, really, your creative team members to stay engaged. What are some of your tips for that, especially in a remote environment? How do you keep everyone excited?
Well, it's connectivity. It's feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself, right? That's a human truth that we all crave. So keeping people connected, finding reasons for us to come together, injecting fun. And then I'll speak to personal leadership last. But even last week, we did a fitness challenge, right? Because one of the things when you're stuck at home is you don't get to move. Most of us don't live in big homes. They're small apartments. We struggle to even take our dogs out. People have bought soil and stuck it on the balcony and tried to retrain their dogs to just go on the balcony. It's interesting, the challenges that we deal with now. But we just did simple fitness challenges. One of my leadership team each day led one. And I led one that I hope was kind of fun called the Chopstick Challenge. So it was basically Pilates, but it was, look, you don't have to have weights in your house to get a good workout. So hold chopsticks in certain angles and do certain exercises for a minute and a half. You'll find your arms are pretty sore. And in retrospect, some people sent me snapshots of all the people who were doing these exercises with me, the Chopstick Challenge, and they weren't flattering, especially of me. But I thought, that's okay, because that's the point, is to create
Yeah.
fun and to take down the veneer and just be a real person. And I think that leads to the last point, which is personal leadership. It's easy to fund something fun for people to do. It's a little bit harder to jump in and personally lead it or demonstrate vulnerability in those moments. And that's where, the subtitle of this book is not sexy, but we landed on it because it's just the most direct articulation of what I really hope, which is to help you guys live a more intentional life and lead with authentic purpose. And these words are often used. What does that mean? What's purpose? To me, purpose is the intention that underpins all your action. And then purpose is your reason for being. Authenticity is equally important, because if purpose is your intention that underpins your action, authenticity is the character that underpins your behavior. And if your reason for being is your purpose, your sincereness of being or your consistency of who you are is authenticity. And I think as a leader, when people are stressed or demoralized or struggling, seeing that you are a purpose-driven leader and that you're authentic in it, I think both are equally important, because if you're purpose-driven but inauthentic, people smell it a mile away. If you're really authentic, but you don't have a purpose that fuels your behavior and your leadership, it's easy to get lost as well. So I think those two things really do go hand in hand.
And what I love about your chopstick challenge, I'm actually just reading the comments. You can see them on the side there. Someone said that sounds so fun, chopstick challenge. What I love about that is it doesn't require, like you said, it didn't require any tools. So if anyone didn't have the right, yoga mat or anything,
Yeah.
it's, they can too participate. But also that you let it. And I think many people, they look to, or they see examples of these big tech companies sending, $300 or $400 packages to like brighten their employees' day. And as a small business owner, I'm like, that would be great.
Mhm.
However, I may not have the budget to do that. It's understanding that that's not always what people need.
Yeah.
It's not always this material. And maybe, most likely your employees feel more connected to you after that chopstick challenge than they would ever feel if you sent them a huge bouquet or a basket of wine or whatnot, because you've created that connection that you were originally talking about.
I hope so. I think that's the intentionality part, which is thinking through what people need, how I can help them get there, and put myself aside, and sometimes being a little silly or letting people see fat rolls. I looked at this photo someone snapped. I was like, "Oh, good God." But they know that I'm in it for them, and I'm all in, and hopefully that means something when we're all stuck at home and doing our best to work together.
Amazing. Well, you are speaking at our virtual conference, which is coming up at the end of next month.
Yeah.
This is my first time, or our first time as a team doing the hybrid. I'm really excited about it. We have produced several virtual conferences over the pandemic, and of course, we had five in-person Whistler-based conferences before the pandemic. So you are tuning in virtually, which is amazing. And your talk is defining your social legacy and becoming a purposeful leader. What can we expect? Your talk is about 15 minutes. What are some of the key focuses that you're going to reflect on?
Well, we've talked a lot about the theory, right? What is social legacy? And we've talked about purpose, authenticity, intentionality, these words that get used a lot, but I've kind of tried to define them. I guess what I like to do is get action oriented, which is, so how do I do that? How do I apply to my workplace? So I have a little construct that goes through who are you as a leader? How do you define that? What do you stand for? A lot of that is social legacy. How do we unpack that sort of in a super quick version? And then very importantly, how? How do you bring it to life? The fitness challenge is one small tactical example, but how do you represent who you are and what you stand for every day at home and at work?
Love it. Love it. And I know, some of the diagrams that are in the book are really helpful. Just as sort of another plug, we will have a copy of the spare room in our WNorth experience box that every in-person attendee is getting. So I've got a pile of them in my house right now. So I'm really excited about that. So on the theme of the conference, so this year our conference theme is the new leadership playbook for an inclusive economy, and I borrowed this theme from the B team, which is Richard Branson's social purpose company, led by one of our former keynotes at WNorth, Hala Thomas Daughter. And the idea is that if we are going to solve the world's biggest challenges, then we need to rewrite the leadership playbook. So I would love to know, if you were going to write a chapter of the new leadership playbook, what would it be? I think I have a little bit of an insight, what would you share?
I've been thinking about this offer and offense model a lot. It was really curated around the individual and helping people figure out what they contribute and against what they put that effort and energy and resource. One of the things that's come up is, I joined McCann because we are a purposeful company. And we don't talk about being a marketing solutions company or even an advertising agency. We say we want to help brands earn meaningful roles in consumers' lives. The things that this company has done, like Fearless Girl in New York, or This Ables, this amazing campaign for IKEA, or the immunity bracelet in the Middle East. These are things that I feel really proud of. These are the kinds of things that I want to become a part of. So I was thinking, does this offer and offense model work in the professional environment? Does this help companies identify a social purpose? And I think to some degree, yes, but maybe it needs to be broadened. So if I were to write the next playbook, I think I would reframe it as your offer and your opportunity. Because if you use that same idea, every brand ought to be able to define what is their offer, what is my brand proposition, what is the opportunity? And then that intersection becomes a brand's social legacy. I think that could be a really interesting new step. And I haven't done anything with it other than just thought about the model, but it might be something we start using and seeing if it really works, and helps us, unearth new insights or ways of positioning brands to play more meaningful roles in consumers' lives.
I love that. And I have a feeling that I'm going to be knocking on Hella's door and saying, I think we should be writing this new leadership playbook, because right now it's a website with a lot of great resources and tools, but it has not been officially written. So maybe your next pen will be with with the new playbook. So I'm almost at time, but I wanted to just share a little bit more about your book. And I wanted to ask you maybe to share what websites are you selling on? Where would you like people to find out more about the spare room?
Yeah, so the website is www.social-legacy.com. You could sign up. I rarely give updates because I hate receiving them myself. So they're really only when there's something really unusual or extraordinary that I don't share publicly first. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at thesparerroom.emilychang. And you can buy the book anywhere, Amazon or Barnes & Noble or through Simon & Schuster directly.
And I just realized that I missed one of the questions, which I was most excited to ask you about. So I'm going to extend this interview, if that's okay, about your movie.
Oh,
so when you were talking about, I only emailed the updates. I was like, yes, I remember getting an email about the movie deal. So congratulations on the movie deal. Can you share a little bit about how that happened? And do you have creative decision-making over the story? What can we expect?
So yes, in fact, last night, our family sat down for an hour and read through the second version of the script top to bottom. So we feel, again, insanely blessed. Like, we wrote the book in 1 year, then came back to work. And on the 1-year anniversary of the book, we sent off our final feedback on the script. Like, how crazy is that, right? You couldn't orchestrate it if you tried.
Amazing.
So it came about through my daughter's godfather. He's amazing, Jim Bechtold. He's got amazing connections. He's been in this world. He's that guy who's always for you. He's like life's greatest cheerleader. And I wish a Jim Bechtold on every single one of you guys. He thought about this. And in the past, I'd seen some comments on Amazon feedback and things, which was, this would be an interesting Netflix series, etc. And he actually just connected me with some folks who were really interested in turning this into a film. And just like with the book, it was really unusual, I found out after, to have a say in what the title is and what the cover looks like. Not all authors have that. And I did. Thank you so much, Debbie and Post Hill. But same with the script. They've been super respectful. Like, hey, is this representing you guys right? Is this accurate? And there are some things we're taking some creative license and merging stories just for the sake of time and storytelling. But for the most part, we have a very respectful partnership, and they've really been very open to taking our feedback, which we're so grateful for.
Amazing. Well, that's congratulations on so many fronts that that the script has arrived, and it will be a movie as opposed to a series. Is that correct?
It'll be a movie, and I think, yeah, I don't know where it's gonna go. I guess it depends on who buys it and who finances and where we go from there. But, when they sent me their proposal, I was so excited because it's like all my favorite things rolled up in one. I always said I wanted this to be a movement, like that would be my heart's desire, and the movement I referenced was Pay It Forward. Because the thing with Pay It Forward is everybody knows that phrase when you hear it. Hey, who started it, you guys? I don't think people know. And that to me would be awesome. If one day people were saying, hey, what's your spare room? Let's talk about social legacy. Who started it? Yeah, I'm not sure. Because ultimately, it's not about me, it's about the idea. And I think when ideas live on, that's where there's really power. So they talked about Pay It Forward meets The Blind Side, means Instant Family, meets Crash, the way the stories are told. And I'm like, those are 4 of my favorite things ever. So yes, if it comes to life like that, I'm going to be beyond thrilled.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations on the 1 year. I've just popped up the website here where you can find
Oh,
out
yeah.
more. So I encourage you to go check out social-legacy.com. Emily's book, The Spare Room, where you buy books locally or globally. And thank you again for being here. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks at the WNorth conference. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Heather. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.